Zakir, you said you were in the 90s, you were studying physics, and that's when you came to know about Abdus Salam. The whole, how much did you know about the backstory of the community that he comes from and the 1974 incidents and the 1984, I think, the certain elements of the law that were passed? Like, how much familiar were you with all that and the persecution? And
Back
then
in
same
90,
and then same question for Anand afterwards. Right.
back virtually nothing. Virtually nothing. It was a steep learning curve in terms of absorbing all that went down. I just had a sort of vague sense of there was this community that was declared heretical by an act of parliament in 1974. Obviously, one had Ahmadi friends in high school, but one knew very little as to what their beliefs were. Uh, One also knew that they would keep it hush hush,
Mm-hmm.
and those among us who were progressives would tell them to not reveal their identity. I remember this one friend of mine wrote Ahmadi on a piece of paper where you had to declare what your religion was. And I remember another friend telling him, "What, are you mad? Don't do this." And then I was rather intrigued and asked him why why are you telling him to not reveal what he is? And they're like, "No, no, no, it's super controversial and they're persecuted." The friend went, "Thank you, thank you." And so, it's very superficial sense of what all was at play. Of course, by the end of it, we got to know everything extremely well. I mean, knew it inside out, knew it far better than some Ahmadis, I'll say. I don't want to sound, at the risk of sounding like Imran Khan, at the risk of sounding like someone who says, I know the West far better than Westerners know themselves. But yeah, but initially, nothing at all. And what's interesting is what Tariq Ali ends up saying in an interview that when there were riots against the Ahmadis in the mid 50s, the Munir and Kayani Commission wrote this scathing report of what transpired, and they couldn't get uh, any two mullahs to agree on a definition of Islam. And Tariq Ali calls it one of the most illuminating documents in Pakistan's history, and it should be mandatory in our curricula because it's extremely enlightening. But obviously, those things you realize only retrospectively, right? Once you've done a deep dive, is
Yeah.
when you, oh my God, there's this, and this, which everyone should know about.
Right. Right. And Anand, you?
No, I was completely clueless. I mean, I grew up in India, so we are familiar with that part of the world, all the religious hatred, bigotry, all that, the politics behind it, and how the two nations got to where they are today. Um, I knew a little bit about the making of the bomb and all that history, and his name would pop up. I think I had read that. In college, I did math, physics, and chemistry, but it was just sort of very general. I did my bachelor's in physics, so there would be some particle physics mentioning there, and I guess the name would pop up there, but nothing. I didn't know anything much about the Ahmadi angle at all. I mean, I know the word Qadiani was. I grew
Mm.
up in a city, Hyderabad, which is half Muslim, and that word would every now and then appear. But I was like, okay, maybe it's another. We had Aga Khanis, we had various
Mm-hmm.
sects even in Hyderabad, and Bohras. So yeah, and that name would come up, but I really didn't know beyond that what it really meant and what the history was behind how the whole sect came to be, and so that to me was a huge revelation when I dove into this film and this topic. I mean, that's the best part about making these films that we
Mm-hmm.
make. You learn so much, and you know even if you're writing like a PhD thesis, I mean, probably you would not learn as much as sometimes when you make a documentary film, because you come at it from so many different angles and there's so many layers that you unpack. um,
Yeah.
and yeah, no, there was, and then that led me to research more like the history of the Ahmadis in India itself, in Punjab and all that, which is sort of mentioned lightly in the film.
Yeah.
And then the story of Salam coming to India to meet his teacher, that was quite like, I was blown away by that story. And there was another story which is not in the film, where he had also come to Hyderabad. Somebody told me after they watched my film that actually the city I was born in, Salam had made a visit. There was some interesting information I learned about that. So yeah, before the film, I mean, it was just a name and of a person who had reached great heights in his field. That's about it.
Yeah. Um, in terms of one of the things I loved about the film, and having watched a lot of documentaries of people who are not around anymore, for the lack of a better word, it becomes challenging. How do you angle, especially if there's not that much available in terms of interviews, in terms of footage. One thing that to me stood out the most is normally when you show I wouldn't say any, a lot of directors or producers, when they would have, when they want to show, let's say, Istanbul from the 1950s, they'll probably show a shot in the present time of Istanbul and go on to the story, wherever the story is taking you. But you guys were able to dig in and find archival footage of each cities and each town and each villages of relatively around the same time, which really took me to that time. And I really, really appreciated that. It didn't occur to me the first time I watched it, but today when I watched it, it hit me that how important that was. How was that in terms of getting all that stuff? And I'm sure Zakir and I talk about archival footage all the time, but I would love to know more from both of you guys, the angle of getting that and the process of getting that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I should give kudos to Zakir for this. I mean, we have this amazing footage of Lahore, which actually came from India, came from actually a movie called Lahore. That's where we found that footage. And
Okay.
it's quite a endeavor to chase it down because the archives wouldn't release the footage to anybody. So we had to once we found it, I was tapping into contacts I had, and once we got to the footage, they couldn't transfer it, so we had to pay for somebody to go from Pune to Bombay to
Private to Bombay, yeah.
No, I mean that's where these films come down to, right? I mean, yeah, when you see old footage in a movie, it's not just it takes you back to that place, but it's also kind of just like when you watch an old photograph, it does trigger something.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the beginning when we had a discussion, I had said we have to make this film by not just telling Salam's story but also Pakistan's story, and interweave it with what was happening during that time in its political, the unrest and the political upheaval that the country was also going through. And so using old footage became sort of, yeah, we have to. I mean, we have clips of Jinnah, we have clips of Lahore, we have clips of other places, even London, from that time period. So yeah, I mean, I guess it was sort of a no-brainer to go and see what we can find, and luckily we did find some amazing stuff.
Yeah. Zakir, just how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. It was an obsession. I got obsessed with archives and trying to dig stuff up. I remember Googling Salam every single day for decades. Even remember Googling Abdus Salam because I had a feeling that dyslexic loggers would have gotten that incorrectly. And we found the prison court shows up if you look up Abdus Salam. So not when you Google Abdus Salam. But if you notice, we did a cross dissolve. We moved back and forth in the
Yeah.
same cross
I
space.
love that. Yeah.
It was very hard to do because how the hell do you not just find archives, but find archives in the same time you're looking at and the same cross section of space. Some of it was premeditated, some of it was accidental. But
we had a clip
I think
of
it's looking and looking and looking and looking and looking and constantly looking and revisiting and just trying out all sorts of crazy things and searching constantly because the internet is. So searching for something once and not coming upon something doesn't mean it's not there or that someone who has it hasn't put it up. Constantly looking for things. But it was funny how Anand and I were filming in Italy, and my wife, we were getting married, and my 2B had told me to get a suit from Italy. And I remember Anand and I were like, man, let's get that bloody shot. That was a shot we used to go back in time. So like, screw the suit, we have to get a shot.
Yeah.
We'd figure out what cross section to film and where to film it from, for that one cross dissolve. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to, we've also managed to do it quite well for this other film we're working on together. But not being able to find one particular appearance of this person on a show really torments me. Because you can't get obsessive and, let go of stuff you can't find. The worst thing to have happened, and I think Anand and I both felt the same way. We found great photos of Salam and Bhutto together, and found some stuff in better quality only after we'd done the film.
After we had finished, yeah.
Which
That's
is
always the
rarely
case.
happen. That's always the case, but it really hits. I mean, it is, so yeah.